You have just tuned in to the Mag Nerd Podcast, your home for everything in music, anime, and gaming.
What is up, guys? Show Note the King here, back with another video, and today, slow clap, fast clap for motherfucking Goblin Slayer. Oh, boys, let me tell you. Full disclosure, I am not an anime only for Goblin Slayer. I have read the manga. I am current in the manga. So, just be forewarned about that. Now, with my reviews, I will not ever spoil you guys ahead of what's currently going on in Goblin Slayer. But what I will do is, as I'm reviewing each episode, I'll give you the manga anime differences and give you a little bit more context as to what was going on in the manga that you might have missed in the anime. And that's kind of what I'm going to be bringing to you guys. But without further ado, let's talk about Goblin Slayer. So, for those who don't know, Goblin Slayer, to me, when I first started reading it, it was very attractive from the very first chapter. Simply because it reminded me a lot of Berserk. And for me, that is one of the premier mangas that I've read. And some in the anime as well was fantastic. Not the one that they actually just recently brought out, the one that's in CG. That one is ass, but we're not talking about that one. I'm more so talking about that one that showed up on Netflix that was basically put into like 3 movies that basically retold the story from the ones in the 80s. That Berserk. But anyway, I digress. So, the reason why I was nervous about this first episode of Goblin Slayer is because I was very afraid that they would not handle a direct adaptation from the manga, meaning that the manga is hyper gore, hyper violent, and very sexualized as far as like the goblin rape goes. But I am proud to report that the first episode did a damn good job conveying exactly what goblins do and what they're all about. So I have to tip my hat and give a round of applause to Crunchyroll for not super censoring it like they did Terraform Mars, which is probably still the biggest travesty in anime history. So that and Tokyo Ghoul. So let's talk about Goblin Slayer. All right, so it's set in a magical world, and we get introduced to the female MC, and she's 15 years old. She's a brand new adventurer, just got out of her temple school, and she's basically a priestess. She only knows 2 abilities: Minor Heal and Holy Light, and she's what's known as a porcelain rank. Any new adventurers that come into the world is known as a porcelain rank. That's the lowest, and the highest is a platinum rank. Now, you're also told at the beginning of the series that there is a middle rank where basically, which is silver, and that's kind of usually what you see around the area is silver rank adventurers. Those are the ones. Everybody else is usually higher up into the doing bigger missions like fighting dragons and going against demon lords, things of that nature. So usually it's a rarity to even see a silver character in this particular town that they're in. So our female MC, she is just, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, goes off on her first adventure with a group of other porcelain adventurers, and they are going to hunt goblins. Now, we learn from the one of the, well, I guess, spoilers incoming, we learned from one of the other characters that, he's fought goblins in the past and that goblins aren't a big deal. They have the intelligence and the size of a small child, which is true. So they go off on their adventure and they go off on their first goblin hunt, and things don't go well for them at all. So let's talk about it. So what I am really enjoying about this anime is the way that they stayed true to the manga and kept in all the violence, all the gore, and even a little bit of the goblin rape. A little bit of the goblin rape, and I'll explain. So they go into the cave and they're ambushed by the goblins. And of course, if you watch an episode, I'm not going to recap everything, but of course, if you watched it, you saw what happened. What I want to talk about is the differences that we got from the manga chapter versus the anime chapter. And again, for the most part, they did a good job. One of the little things that they ended up doing in the actual manga that I wish they would have actually done in the anime is as the group is getting attacked, like for instance, the witch that was on the team, she, after she cast her first firebolt attack and it did kill the goblin, they go through a quick backstory of her. And again, it's very brief, it's only a few panels, but it kind of, so in the anime, you see her shoot her first firebolt, and then she gets swarmed by the goblins. They tackle her, and one of the goblins takes her staff and he snaps it over his knee, and she kind of like has this shocked look on her face. And in the manga, when she has that shocked look on her face, it kind of flashes back to a really brief story where her family is teaching her, and you get the pride of that weapon that they gave to her. And it kind of gives you an emotional tie to that character for known reasons, because they want you to understand what's going to happen to her next. And what happens to her next is that she gets shanked right in the belly with a knife from one of the goblins. And again, that was the first moment when I knew that Goblin Slayer was going to be legit. Is when they first stabbed her in the stomach. They didn't pan away. It wasn't shadowed. You actually see her getting stabbed through the stomach. And you see that pain and that agony in her face as she's getting stabbed. And I didn't see that coming, because in the manga you see her moans and her screams and her yells, but the way that they do it in the actual anime is brutal, man. Like, she was ripping and writhing in pain on the floor, and of course the goblins proceed to rip her clothes off and start to attack her. To which the point where the other two adventurers come out, and then the battle ensues. And for that most part, the anime and the manga mirrored each other for that particular moment, because you find out the male adventurer, he's dealt with goblins, but he's never dealt with goblins in the confines of a cave. So, of course, when he's swinging at the goblins with his longsword, that longsword works well in a non-confined area, but in an actual cave, it's actually a hindrance for him. So, of course, he bangs the sword against the rocks, and then that's the exact moment where the goblins swoop in, and they basically just eviscerate this guy. They stab him, they rip him apart. It's not a pretty sight. And again, for the most part, they did get that. Now, what I will say, in the manga version, it was a lot more gorier. Like, you actually see the goblins ripping his arms off. So he is literally butchered from head to toe in that actual cave. And no rape for him. Clearly, goblins don't want boys. So another thing that happens with the fighter. Yep, they pretty much matched her death, or not her death, but her brutality up to the T. Again, the whole kick from the bigger goblin that slams her kind of Hulk style into the walls, and when they start to attack her and they start to rape her, in the manga, of course, you see her bare chest open up, so you do see that in the manga. So they did cut that out. They did cut out some of the gratuitous nude scenes in the actual anime, and I'm sure when they release it on Blu-ray, there'll be an uncut version if people want to really see it in its entirety. I'm almost positive they will. But what I did not enjoy as far as like watching, but I did enjoy that they still stayed true to it. They kind of showed the veracity of these goblins and what they're about. So you do kind of see her in that arch position, and you kind of see that maniacal look in the goblin's face when he rips off her underwear and her bottom area before he proceeds to rape her. So, and then again, you get the sounds and everything. It's pretty graphic. It was pretty awesome just to see them actually adapt it correctly from the manga. So, the 15-year-old, she runs deeper into the cave with the witch. We do now. One of the other differences that we do get in the manga in this particular situation is once she gets to that end of that cave, she does try to cast minor heal on the witch again. To which the point the two goblins do come in and they stop her by shooting her in the arm with the arrow. So again, that is a minor difference from the anime to the actual manga. And then they do proceed to attack and assault the woman again, and she's not really offering up much of a struggle at that point. She's just spitting up blood, and the goblins are ripping off her clothes, and again you kind of see the nails digging into the breast meat, stuff like that in the manga. And then we get the Goblin Slayer showing up and, saving the day. And also in the manga, she doesn't say, kill me. He just kind of goes up to her and is like, and he explains that she's been poisoned. But what I actually like more in the manga is that he explains exactly what the poison is. So in the manga, he walks up and he says, it's too late for her. The potion won't work. The goblins mix a poison on their blade, and it's basically their pee, their shit, and then it's a bunch of other herbs. And it's actually very crude but very effective. So once that they stabbed her and it went through her bloodstream, there was pretty much no saving her at all. So, Goblin Slayer basically stabs her through the neck to kind of end her torment, but she doesn't ask to be killed. She just kind of mumbling she really can't, because she's basically choking on her own blood. So I guess it was kind of a way for them to try to say he didn't just kill this chick indiscriminately. She kind of asked to be killed. But in the manga, he made it pretty clear that he was the authority on this situation, that she was not going to survive. So I'm just going to kill your ass. So I do appreciate the manga kind of fleshing things out more. And again, that's typically what they do. And it's always like teachable moments in the manga as well, as far as like what are goblins, like what they are capable of. One other, I have it on my notes, so I just want to make sure that I get it correctly. Yes. So as they go deeper into the cave, as you saw, we meet up with the scout. He kills the scout, and then you see him set up this trap. And in the anime, he sets up the trap, and then they just go. But you don't actually figure out what the trap is for. In the actual manga, you do figure out that what he's trying to do is, and he actually explains it to the priestess. He says, he's like, we're gonna go ahead and he's like, what kind of magic abilities do you have left? Like, they actually sit down for a while and they kind of conversate with each other. They strategize on what they're going to do. And she's like, I only have 2 spells remaining, but I know how to do minor heal and I know how to do holy light. And he's like, okay, don't worry about your minor heal. It's going to be useless in this situation, but make sure that you have your 2 holy heals, and this is how we're going to use it. So he explains her the plan of what he's going to do with the rope. He's like, I'm going to set this rope here. Just remember it's here, and don't forget about it when we come back. You're going to make sure that you don't forget about this rope. So he informs her, because again, he's not leaving anything up to chance. This guy, you can tell, Goblin Slayer is very well planned. He's very meticulous about it. When it comes to goblins, he's very well, all his plans are thought out. So I do appreciate the manga doing a really good job of explaining exactly what was going to be happening ahead of time, versus in the anime where you kind of just get left in the wind. You just see him lay out this rope, but you don't actually see what he does with it until it actually happens. Now, we go further in, and just to let you guys know, this episode, it covers chapters 1 and 2 of the actual manga. The first chapter of the manga was about 50 pages, and the second chapter is about 40 pages. So they do a really good job overall condensing the episodes into just one episode, covered about 2 chapters. Now, the only other major thing that happens is when they actually go into the actual cave and she uses holy light the first time. In the manga, the room lights up and he quickly scans and counts exactly how many goblins there are plus the shaman. But in the manga, when the room lights up, you kind of see the aftermath of what happened to the girl that got kidnapped. Like, you see her laid out with the other 2 women. The other women have been captive, and you kind of see the goblins in the process of, raping all the women. Again, you kind of see that, and it just gives gravitas to what these women are going through at that moment. So that's what they did in the actual manga, versus in the anime, you kind of just see the room light up, and you see a couple of goblins, and you see him throw the spear. But again, in the manga, you actually see everything. You see the women on the ground getting raped. You see the shaman in the background. You kind of get like a wide burst. And then, of course, we get the scene where they go back. And for the most part, I think that was probably the last time that they kind of deviated from the anime, from the manga itself. Now, what I want to talk about in general is just, this episode was fantastic, man. Like, Goblin Slayer, we have just witnessed quite possibly the best anime of fall 2018. And I will also say, I watched the first episode of How I Got Reincarnated into a Slime. I did not think I was going to enjoy that anime, and I actually really enjoyed episode 1. So if you guys are also looking for another anime to watch, How I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. I have not watched Sword Art Online yet. I will, as soon as this video is uploaded, I'm going to actually watch that. But after I finish watching Goblin Slayer, I had to jump on here and give you guys a review for this, because this anime is fucking incredible. Let's talk about the voices. I love the voice actor for Goblin Slayer. He has this guts, kind of like Vulcan kind of like deep brooding voice underneath, and you can kind of hear his voice through that metal. It's spot on. Like, I don't know how these voice actors do it, but it's spot on. The main MC, the girl, her voice was great. Even the voices of the goblins, it sounds like you can hear the little menacing, like little shit turd stained voices that they have. It's very good. The animation style is top notch. Thank God they did not go with CG. I mean, it is. I'm so thankful they didn't go with CG with this, and they just went with a very great anime style. Like that scene, I think I'm gonna use it for my thumbnail. That scene when Goblin Slayer kind of like comes into the light, and you see that little red eye of his just kind of go across the screen. It gave me chills, man. Like seriously, gave me chills. And it just like the actual mode where he rushes in and he just slaughters these goblins like it's nothing. I love the rock music that they're playing in the background, because again, you in this kind of certain situation, you could only do rock or rap, and in this particular situation, based on the setting that they had, rock is the only way to go in that scenario. So kudos to you guys. So animation style, you get a 5 out of 5. Sound quality, 5 out of 5. Voiceovers, 5 out of 5. I mean, and again, with the adaptation from the manga to the anime, I'd probably give it a 4 out of 5. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a Blu-ray release, and I can't wait to go back and watch that. But for what we got, you get the impact. Even when the girls, after everything is over, when Goblin Slayer finally, almost forgot, yeah. So after Goblin Slayer kills the shaman and kills off all the other goblins in there, he actually moves the throne of the shaman and finds baby goblins in there, and that's where we kind of get how naive the main MC was at that beginning, and you kind of get the explanation from Goblin Slayer that look, goblins are they don't forget, and they are very adaptive. They learn from their mistakes, so you can't let these kids live. Like, so yeah, I let these kids live, and they'll come back, and they'll be smarter and harder to kill next time. And they might kill more people. So the only kind of good goblin is a dead goblin. And you kind of see the main female. She kind of says, what if there's a good goblin out there? And he's kind of like, yeah, there could be, but we're not going to waste our time with this. And he proceeds to just brutally kill these kids goblins, and with the mallet. And again, you can just see the blood dripping off the mallet. It is incredible. Like, man, like, guys, I am so excited. Like, be prepared, because you're going to see this face reviewing Goblin Slayer every week. And when I say every week, I mean every week. So we get that, and we get the faces of the women. We get the narration that what a lot happens in this town is that these women get attacked by these goblins, and they're never the same ever again. And again, who the fuck wants to be raped by a goblin? Nobody. So I can completely understand how, if these women survive those kind of attacks, how they would never want to leave the house again, or they're never seen again. Because I'm pretty sure that woman, the karate master, she's never going to be an adventurer again. Not after that. And I mean, like I said before earlier, another one of the manga anime differences is that each one of those adventurers that ended up getting butchered, you got a backstory for as they were getting killed. So like the original witch, when she shot her firebolt, like I said, she had her backstory in the manga. It was very brief, but you kind of got the impact of that. And the same thing happened with the karate master, the female, when she got slammed against the wall. You kind of see her quick backstory of her seafood teaching her the arts, and kind of saying how her journey was to become an adventurer. And then the last one we see is with the guy with the long sword. You kind of see his upbringing, trying to figure out how he's going to be becoming a great adventurer. He's going to slay dragons, and of course he gets butchered as well. So I do hope that they kind of tighten that up a little bit and bring us more content that we got from the manga into the anime, because I think everybody would have enjoyed seeing those kind of moments. But again, I'm not docking them for that at all, because to me, getting the violence correct, getting the tone of the actual anime correct was more important, and I think they did a great job doing that. So, not going to dock them for that. So overall, this episode is a fantastic. There isn't much improvement other than just kind of keep it a little bit tighter to the manga. But again, I want to know what you guys think. What did you think about Goblin Slayer? Let me know in the comments section below. Thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel, because I will be reviewing this series every week. I mean, every week. So, Shown of the King, Goblin Slayer.